Hello, my name's Paul Borman. I'm an executive coach to some of the most senior people in the world and a business psychologist. In this online program, I'll share with you some of the common issues that my clients bring to me and the advice that I give them to help overcome these issues. There'll be written exercises to complete, and most importantly, actions to take back in your workplace. One of the interesting things about starting a coaching relationship with someone is how difficult it is to get in the diary in the first place. Nearly everyone who I meet seems desperately busy. Trying to find 2 hours to work on their personal development seems really difficult. And the problem they have meeting with me is just a small symptom of the pressure that they have in their everyday life. And what about you? Do you feel frustrated and dissatisfied with how you're spending your time? Do you find it hard to get around to the things that you know are important? Do you feel that you're swamped with emails and meetings that you didn't even put in your diary? And so you spend your time attending meetings that seem to be adding really very little value to you. Overall, do you end up feeling that you aren't in charge of your own job, that the job is in charge of you? It's easy for people to lose track of what they're really there to do. Most top leaders have been hired to achieve something significant for the business, something way above and beyond the attendance of all these meetings and response to the emails that actually ends up filling their day. However, the restless, urgent demands of the day-to-day activity can cause people to lose sight of the big ask. Let me give you an example of an IT director who came to me. He'd been brought in by his organisation because the IT department really needed transforming. The people in it needed to be trained and have their capability increased. The system itself needed to be redesigned, and the way in which the IT department worked with the rest of the organisation needed to change too. That's quite a big ask, but the big problem was you couldn't just turn off the IT department for a year and let him transform it. He had to keep the old system running at the same time as doing the transformation. The problem was just keeping it going took more and more and more of his time. There were endless failures and problems, issues to resolve, and he was finding that all of his time was taken up keeping the existing system running and not transforming the new. He came to me when he had a moment of realization that if he kept on going the way he was going, keeping the system running, doing everything that was asked of him, in a year's time, he will have been judged to have failed in his overarching purpose of transforming the organisation. He desperately needed to find a way to do the transformation, make time for all of the work that was involved, while still keeping the existing department running. So what did I do to help him? Well, the very first thing I needed to do was make sure he was entirely clear about what his real purpose was and what he was really in the organisation to do. And so I'm going to do with you what I did with him and focus first on the purpose of your role. The first thing that you need to figure out is what is the purpose of your role? Why does your role exist in the organisation? What is it there to do? For most people, it isn't as simple as that sounds. It's not just like naming your job title. Let's take an example of a sales director. The purpose of a sales director isn't just to be a sales director. There's something more is required. So if you ask one, they might say, well, I guess the purpose of my role is to sell loads of products. Sounds plausible, but isn't really true. If you're a sales director, you're not the one who's going out and selling the products. So with a bit more reflection, you might conclude, well, the purpose of my role is to build and lead a function that sells loads of products. Doesn't that sound like the right purpose? On first glance, it does, but I've encountered many problems with people who define their purpose in that way. A sales function with that purpose might well be inclined to missell products or oversell what the rest of the organisation can deliver. So really, the most powerful type of purpose for a role like that would be something like to create a function that sells customers the right products that the rest of the organisation can provide and that the customers want to come back for more of. If you think about those 4 different possibilities that I've shared with you, you can see the implication on your time of which one you choose. If you just say the purpose of my role is to be a sales director, that really tells you nothing about how you should spend your time. If you think it is to sell lots of products, that would imply you're spending lots of your time with customers. If you pick the option of it being about leading a function, well, I'm sure you still spend some time with your customers, but you'll need to spend more time with your people, coaching, developing, inspiring, and motivating them. And if you take my final, more complex option, then there's 3 things you're going to need to do. Still spend time with customers, still spend time with your people, but increasingly spend more time with your peers and connecting to the rest of the organisation. So hopefully you can see how important it is to get exactly the right purpose, because it has huge implications on how you'll spend your time. Your first activity is to work out the purpose of your role. Think long and hard about what you're really there to do. Like my IT leader example, think about what you'll really be judged on in a year's time. When you've figured out the purpose of your role, write it down in the space provided on the worksheet. Then if you can, try to sanity check this purpose by sharing it with somebody that you work with and that you trust. You may be surprised by the different views that people have about what you're really there to do and how you should be spending your time. Once you've completed this task, you'll be ready for lesson 2. So now you've seen the importance of being clear of your purpose. Don't forget to record your purpose on your worksheet and share it with someone who you trust. Once you've done this, come back and join me again for lesson 2.